is doing all right. Um, I have several shows that I need to get to today, and I know I said this often, but this is true. This week has been somewhat of a hectic week. But there are several topics that I want to get to, and the news never stops. And because the news never stops, I always feels like I guess I'm in a hurry. But for this very particular point, and I can't spend a lot of time here because I have an interview with Jordan Sheridan coming up at 10:45 this morning. But I did want to give a little bit of time of asking and even answering the question of why did Jimmy Dore leave the Young Turks? I think it's a fascinating question. When Dore, just to go back my history on this, I didn't necessarily, Dore wasn't my favorite person when the Young Turks was on originally. He became one of my favorite people as the show went on, meaning he grew on me as the show went on. Him leaving, I was never one of those people that believed that Dore should leave the Young Turks. Meaning there were a lot of people who were pushing this idea, oh, he should split, he should separate, etc. And for me, my thought was I like having a contrary opinion, meaning I like having an opinion on the show that was different than the mainstream media light opinion, on the MSNBC light opinion that you got on the main show. And what you found was in one situation after the next, he found himself at odds with the main show. I have 2 points that I think are plausible. One, I'm almost certain. The second one is conjecture. My audience will probably believe more than the second one, but it could be one, both, or some combination of each. Dore, however, before going to my own points, dealt with this himself. Meaning Dore did a video entitled Jimmy Dore Leaving TYT Explained, in which he failed to explain why he was leaving TYT, even though in a roundabout way he kind of did. It's like sometimes things in us leak out of us to get across a truth that we don't necessarily want to say in an overt way. It's done so in 2 ways. One way in almost a business sense, but it leaks out in another way in almost a personal sense. Both are being engaged here, and this makes it somewhat of a fascinating story. Let's hear Dore first. This is Dore's video, Jimmy Dore leaving TYT explained, and let's hear Dore make his point about why he's leaving.
So that was my big announcement. I teased yesterday that we're going to make a big announcement, and so it's just time, and it's just time to move on, and honestly, nothing can take away the memories that I had at the Young Turks. It was really an exhilarating experience. It was really a meaty, full-bodied experience that I was privileged to be a part of. So I really thank Cenk and the Young Turks, and I wish them all the success going forward. And hopefully we can collaborate on something worthwhile in the future.
And Jimmy, what about the Jimmy Dore show? Does that continue? Because people are trying to figure that out.
So they used to be the Young Turks own this channel, and then I own it now. So I purchased it from them. So this used to be theirs. It's not. So I bought it. I officially quit working I was only an employee for the Young Turks actually for a year. I was always just an independent contractor. But when Steph quit her job as a teacher, I became an employee so I could get health care. And that was for last year. And then in December, I decided we're going to try and get health care another way. And I quit being an employee. And for a lot of reasons, but you know me, I'm not a corporate guy, right? So that happened, and they were like, "Hey, should we make an announcement?" And I was like, "No, what's the big deal? I'm still doing aggressive progressives. I'm just not a technical." But now I'm not going to be doing aggressive progressives anymore, and so we're making more of a break in that regard. So. Again, big thanks to Malcolm and to Steve and to everybody who made that show work, and Edwin and Skip and Bart and Judith and everybody. And I know I'm leaving people out, so I just want to.
And Hank Thompson again.
Thompson went back to editing Aggressive Progressive. So, and again, this show, Hank was very instrumental to get off the ground. It wouldn't have happened without Hank. So big props to him and thanks to him. And it wouldn't have happened without the example of Cenk Uygur. I've been lucky to have good representation as a stand-up comedian in my whole career. I always had agents who got me auditions and got me work, and Bruce Smith and T.J. Markwalter, and my manager Alex Murray was, he for me and he got me another, and so I've been blessed with good people in my career, and it was a real stroke of luck that I was able to work with the Young Turks and Cenk Uygur. So good luck to them going forward. And again, I hope we can come together and work on something in the future.
It's funny. This video, there are two parts. Like I said, part of it is emotional, but the other part of it seems to be somewhat of a corporate thing. That video in no way explains why he's leaving. Meaning, he said it's just time to move on. That's somewhat of a result of a reason. That's not necessarily a reason in and of itself. I strongly suspect that there are probably multiple reasons, and none of these things are necessarily going to be aired out. When I asked Michael Tracy about, did you know that you were only going to be there for a year, he backed away from that conversation. I would imagine that these are conversations that they don't necessarily want to go in, meaning they're not going to divulge the details of what's going on behind the scenes. The laughing at the corporate part seemed to go on a little bit long. By the same token, at the end of the video, he seems to be broken up, almost to the point of tears. From an emotional point, he is leaving friends. I mean, these were people that he's worked with for God knows how long. And I would imagine that the bonds that were created with him working on the Young Turks wasn't just the job. It was also somewhat of an emotional experience being there. By the same token, one of the reasons I suspect he's leaving is stress. I strongly suspect that despite having those personal bonds also made the divisions that were created when each issue or the various issues came up that much more stressful to deal with. Because it wasn't just a job for Dore. This was something that he enjoyed doing. Right here. Do you remember this? Let's go back in time for a little bit. First topic, stress. This was back during the Clinton election. You would imagine what the main division that took place between lefties was the Clinton race, Clinton and Sanders. The Young Turks going and saying, trying to get people to vote for Hillary Clinton, and Dore being against this proposition and taking a lot of flack for this, not just from people outside of the company and Hillary supporters, but also from within the company itself. You could see the divisions. They were on display for everybody to see.
Be able to do the same thing for 2 years. Saying,
They won't.
Hey,
They won't.
They should. And if we keep voting for weak sauce, we're going to keep getting more of it.
If you don't vote for Hillary Clinton and we end up with Donald Trump, you're going to bear a bit of responsibility for the...
No, it's your fault for not coming and getting my vote.
No,
I want to vote for her.
Then vote for her.
No,
then
I
bite the bullet.
Listen to what he said. He said, you're going to...
2 years.
They won't. They won't.
They should. And if we keep voting for weak sauce, we're going to keep getting more of it.
If you don't vote for Hillary Clinton and we end up with Donald Trump, you're going to bear a bit of responsibility for the...
No, it's her fault for not coming and getting my vote.
No,
I want to vote for her.
Then vote for her.
No,
then bite the bullet and vote for her.
No,
it's a grown-up thing.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
Not at all.
No,
That
it's
is such a
completely.
bullshit
You've never
argument.
been more
That
wrong
is
about
such a
anything.
fucking-
No,
that is a
your
juvenile
argument is
point of view.
nonsense. No,
You have
yours is a
short-term
selfish
thinking,
point of
short-term thinking that got us where we are
you
right
don't
now.
know
That is
anything about what's
bullshit.
going to happen in
That is such
2018.
bullshit.
You're thinking we're going to come back
What do
and...
you fucking know about it?
You don't...
What the fuck do you know about it?
Don't talk to me like that. Don't talk to me like that fucking ever.
We need to put into
What did you just say to me?
I didn't say shut the fuck
All right,
up.
guys,
I
let's
didn't
go to
tell you
break.
shut the fuck
Let's go
up.
to
I said,
break.
what do you fucking know about it?
Yeah, and that's incredibly hostile.
You just said it to me.
No, I wasn't. I
Break.
said you don't know what's going to happen.
If this was going on air, you could imagine what was taking place behind the scenes. It was stressful. The Clinton thing, even among people who, it was a contentious race. And so this idea of trying to push and trying to force him, he called him childish to not vote for Hillary Clinton. That's an amazing, this was the clashes that these guys were having on air. So what took place off air, particularly with supporters of the main show attacking Jimmy Dore for his political opinion? I asked Dore about this. I actually had the opportunity to talk to Dore. I think it was at the People's Summit. And I asked him about this very specific issue. Let's hear him talk about it. The host. And were you able to mend the...
Just saying, I'm not voting for that woman. They cheated my guy. Oh, she can go fuck herself with Jill Stein.
It it felt good in a sense because I'm allowed that freedom on the Young Turks. They don't tell you what to think. You don't have to toe a company line. They gave me a platform to say what I wanted to say. So,
and you know what?
kind of back to that now, in a sense, right? Because they're with the Justice Democrats, and I'm going draft Bernie, but it's the same idea. We're back to getting corporatism out of politics, so that's great.
Yeah, I agree. No, I agree. And I think a lot of people watch your show at the very least, regardless of what they think of politics, they look at you as being a different thing, a separate factor. The fact that you're the lone voice in the wilderness, what people say, well, people give a certain amount of credibility. Would you argue that that's a level of integrity versus fear in that election? Like, meaning people were saying, I'm voting for Jill Stein out of...
He answered it previously. This is going into a different area. But essentially, yes, it was stressful. But he was making the point that as after the election, the Young Turks were pushing the Justice Democrats, and for the most part, they were on a similar page. But they weren't on a similar page. And I suspect that in the same stress that they have for the Clinton thing, that was probably replicated over and over and over again. Meaning the leaving wasn't just because of one specific thing. It was somewhat of a stress injury that just persistently got worse and worse. I mean, the Syria issue, Jimmy Dore was taking a different tack with Syria. Jimmy Dore entertained this notion that it could be a leak as opposed to a hack. Trump and Russia probably being the big one. I mean, the main show was treating people like conspiracy theorists that was against this notion of Trump and Russia. Mind you, we ended up being the ones that was right. I guess my point is, it was probably repeated stress being in opposition with the main show continuously on one issue after the next, even if the overarching contours is agreement. Over and over again, you're finding yourself being at war with people who are supposedly your friends. I asked Dore what was next in almost a prescient conversation. Listen to his answer. He hits on what's next, even though he doesn't necessarily divulge that he was leaving. At this point, he probably already knew. This conversation took place like a week before he announced.
Can be a very spiritual experience in a sense that it makes you present and centered, and you know who you are.
And I ask that question as somebody who's doing this, like the YouTube thing. I do radio sometimes. And I always ask this question, outside of a corporate structure and everything else, where that's somewhat defined, this is kind of amorphous. It's like, you're kind of self-directed in this case. For you, what's next? You do radio. I mean, I know you do comedy. I know you've started doing it in TV. Where is your next move?
So I've done a lot of things that I've already wanted to do, right? So I became a comedian. I got Comedy Central specials. I got on NBC and ABC and CBS, and I went to festivals. And so I did all that. And now, because of the YouTube show, I'm able to sell tickets. And I can play theaters now. And so that's a dream come true. And so I'm trying to find a way to do more live performances because that's what fuels me. Doing the show in front of a camera, after I'm done, I feel depleted and I want to have a coffee or take a nap. But after I do a live show, I feel alive and I feel up and I want to go out and do more. And it's invigorating. And it's
what's the difference? Live performance. He made the point that doing live performances was almost like a religious experience. And that was something that he wanted to do more of. So there's that component, stress versus interest. So let's say stress being the first one, let's say a different interest, meaning he wanted to do more live performances. I would make the point that doing a live performance doesn't stop you from doing a show, however. He's been doing live performances and his show, so there's no reason that would be a reason for deviation. That's why I'm using stress as being the number one factor. One of the things that he brings up, he says corporate structure, and he starts to laugh. And they laugh a little too long when they make the sense of a corporate structure. Let's take a listen to it one more time, because All of them are there. And I think this is part of it. Let's go to it. TYT at this point is somewhat of a corporate entity. He knows it's a corporate entity. So it's like, if that's not necessarily something you want to be a part of, this will also be part of the reason that he may leave. But listen to the laughter.
So
They're laughing really hard at that. That wasn't even a good joke. Unless it is a joke and we're just not in on that joke. We're just not in on that joke. But stress. Essentially, he's having a deviation with the company itself. What he's been pushing. And I strongly suspect that for Jimmy Dore, this goes beyond just a job. This also goes into what he believes in politically. And the fact that they're not on the same page ideologically. One more point to that point, though. Disingenuousness. There was a conversation between Jimmy Dore and Lawrence Steiner. Lawrence Steiner asked Dore whether or not the $20 million that the Young Turks got in any way had an effect on the content of the show itself. Now, you can understand why she's asking this. Cenk Uygur himself makes this argument that politicians are bought, that the money that they get from companies and from other and from other like lobbyist groups and all this other stuff, or the incentives that those companies can give, essentially buys those politicians. That those politicians lean in the direction of the people who are giving them those benefits and giving them those cash. That makes all the sense in the world. You're essentially being paid for your behavior. The money that they give is not a donation; it's an investment. Now, she's asking him, why doesn't that also apply for you guys? If your network, if Uyghur's network got this $20 million and then they're pushing this Russian nonsense, they seem to be falling in line with mainstream media's narrative of events. Dore's answer to this was essentially no, that if Uyghur is pushing this point of view, it's not that he's bought, he's just wrong. Is it possible that changed? Understand what I'm saying, and this is conjecture, and this is just, in the first case, I put, yes, stress, meaning having a repeated stress of having to go against a group that at one point were friends of yours, and you continuously find yourself at odds with them, and in some cases, them even attacking you for being at odds with them. But in the second case, if that changed, meaning if this belief in the organization itself changed, if Dore's belief in the Young Turks changed the way he thought that they were being to some degree disingenuous, would that be enough for him to break ties? Now, he's making the point that he hadn't worked there for a while, but he had felt no reason to kind of air that. But knowing him and knowing that this goes beyond just him having a job, understand, people like Sean Hannity, there's behind the scenes, people were saying Sean Hannity doesn't really care about the information he puts up. He sits down, he has a story, he just puts a story. He knows what his audience wants, he gives the audience what he wants. Whether it's true or not, is irrelevant. I don't think that's true for Dore. And because I don't think that's true for Dore, if Dore was in a situation where he felt that that changed, where he felt that, okay, I don't believe these guys are being genuine, would that be enough of a pretext for him to leave? Yes. Now, there are members of my audience that probably believe that more so than the first one. I think I put more credence into the first one as opposed to the second one, if that makes sense. He's never said anything about the Young Turks being disingenuous, and if anything, he's always been somewhat flattering of Uyghur for giving him a platform. So I say both because I know aspects of my audience believe it's the second one. And to be fair, it could be some combination of both. But at the very least, we know overtly that there was stress associated with him being at the network and being at odds with many of the points of view that the network is taking. But the second one is kind of interesting. Here's the thing. At the end of the video, it sounds like he's breaking up. Don't take my word for it. Let's hear it again. At the very end of this video, it sounds like he's beginning to cry or that he's trying to hold it in, which makes me think that the disingenuousness made me be less so and more so just the first point of it being stressful.
And work on something in the future.
Am I wrong? Look at this.
And so I've been blessed with good people in my career. And, it was a real stroke of luck that I was able to work with the Young Turks. and Cenk Uygur. So good luck to them going forward. And again, I hope we can come together and work on something in the future.
Oh, this era is no more. Jimmy Dore is no longer with the Young Turks. I think I said back then I don't quite know how to feel about it, and I think that's probably still more true than not. So either way, you come to your own conclusion. I honestly hope someone asks the question about the second one. I mean, Laura Steiner asked this while he was working there, but I'm curious about someone getting an opportunity to ask, whether something changed in regards to whether or not he thought the network was being genuine and whether that precipitated his leaving the network. If someone gets the opportunity to ask that question, feel free to ask that question. Don't even have to give me credit for it. Just ask that question. All right, let's see who's here. Static Shock. Hey bro, let's go zap white people. We can ride on circle shield things through the sky and zap crackers and smoke blunts. You down? You can be my sidekick. I am nobody's sidekick. I'm nobody's sidekick. Abby Martin. Jimmy told me he left because you're black. He left TYT because I'm black. He said he's tired of seeing your monkey face stuffing bananas like it's chicken. I don't know, Jamal. It's kind of hard to be a reporter when you're so black. I don't understand what that has to do with Jimmy Dore leaving TYT. I left because you're black. I got tired of... Well, that's the same one. I don't know what that has to do with him leaving TYT. You're black, so I left TYT. What? What does that have to do with him leaving TYT? Edward Klein, TYT has no credibility at all. Medingo, my baby DNC cheated and Hillary having private proposition calls. Trump, Zap Crackers. Yeah, Zap Crackers is funny. Zap Crackers. Like it as like a space weapon. All right, I'm going to end this. I have an interview coming up with Jordan Sheridan. He's going to be on in 6 minutes, 10:45. He has a new show coming up, and so we're going to talk about that. But Jimmy Dore has left TYT. This show has always been supportive, and so I wish him the best. He may be doing his live shows, but hopefully he still sticks around and does his content. So I'll end this here. If you guys enjoy the content, please feel free to share, like, subscribe. You can always support through PayPal or Patreon. Thanks all.